He was a firm believer in the philosophy of Hillel. The Gemara in Shabbos and Lamed Aleph tells a famous, well-known story about a convert who came to Hillel and said that I want to convert to the condition that you teach me the entire Torah whilst I'm standing on one leg. So Amar Lo, Hillel said to him, Dalcha Sani Lechabercha Lord Tavid. Zu he called HaTorah Kula. He said, what is hateful to you, do not do to your friend. That is the entirety of the Torah. That is the entirety of the Torah. And my father had, I guess, some difficulty when he saw a disconnect. People involved in detail who had forgotten that what Hillel is telling us here is that there's a yardstick. How do you decide what is considered Torah? Well, if it's something that would be hateful to you and you wouldn't do to someone else, that's not called Torah. And this was my father's philosophy. And in keeping with that, I think what some people here will recall was the amazing accomplishment that his business, that dealing with was. Because it was a business built on chesed. Let me tell you what I mean by that. He went out of his way to help the poorest customers. We spent hours trawling through the bicycle graveyard that was the workshop at Dylan Booth, looking for washers and springs in piles of grease so that he could fix up some guy's bike and save him R1. That's what he would do. And there could be somebody standing on the side who was a wealthy customer who wanted to spend enormous amounts of money, and that made no difference to my father. On the contrary, I think they were inspired. They were inspired by the fact that this was my father's mission. And if it was somebody who came from a difficult background, I think my father saw reflections of himself in that, and he would spend even more time. And for what? For a lot of those things, he never took a single cent. He loved all people. Their money was not a factor. So it ended up that he built what turned out to be an empire. To the best of my knowledge, there was no other bicycle store, no other chain of stores and factories and clothing factories that he established that ended up getting listed on a public stock exchange. And this was my father's accomplishment. And he did that all by worrying about poor customers who had no money to pay him and spending his time taking care of them. And I once embarrassed myself in a share because I insisted during the share that there was a law in South Africa against overcharging and excessive markups. And there was a lawyer in the share who laughed at me, and I was very embarrassed. But the reason why I was under this impression is because once I was working in Dylan Booth, and we were barking, before the days of barcodes, we used to stick little labels on the boxes with the prices, and my father, I had the marking machine, and we had new stock, and there was still some old stock. So I started to stick the new labels with the new prices on the old stock. And my father said to me, "You can't do that." I thought that was illegal. It just meant I shouldn't do that. Okay, so I stopped. And that's what it was, because he had an innate sense of fairness, integrity. And this is how he built his empire, based on fairness, love of people. And it was never about becoming rich. It was about helping people pedal their way to happiness. And in this sense, I refer back to the Mishnah in Sota. What is it? What defines the era that my father's passing epitomized? And I think it is what the Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos. Azed Mechubad, who is honored, who is honorable. Hamachayet Esabrios, it is somebody who honors other people. And that is exactly what he did. Every interaction with all people from all walks of life. My father respected and honored them. In terms of his communal involvement, Rabbi Hespid probably said more than I will say, but what happened before Rabbi Hespid's time in the era north of Shul, where we struggled for a minyan every single night, and my father would come back on his bicycle from work with his lights on, and he'd ride his bike into the foyer of the Shul, in his cycling clothes, clip-clopping on his cleats on the wooden floors, and make a minyan. That's what he did. And he has he's had the same commitment to ministry. I was just speaking to Max before this because he had a thing that when there were prayers going on, because there was a base album somewhere, my father was very upset. He couldn't cancel this minyan. He said, how can you cancel a minyan kabura in the shul? He said, you have to make a minyan in both places to get the people. So I told Max that they've got to reinstate the minyan because we will send people from our minyan in the base album back to the shul so they can have a minyan there too, because that's what he wanted. And although I was privileged to spend my time with scholars and academics, people with qualifications and lots of letters behind their names, my father's advice was always the best advice. And the older I got, the more I appreciated it. Because he understood with tremendous clarity the principles of fairness, integrity, honor, and respect better than anyone. He was a person of tremendous strength and determination. Rabbi Casey already alluded to that. Grit while riding his bike, with echoing everything that it did. It's 10 years of tremendous physical suffering that he endured. I remember after the freak bicycle accident that he had, when a dog ran into the side of his bike after riding and racing for many years and never having an episode like that, he ended up breaking his neck, fracturing all his ribs, his clavicle, his scapula in 2 places, multiple contusions of the lungs. And I remember being in my office and getting a call from somebody saying, oh, don't worry, your father's had a little bit of an accident. We think that he's dislocated his shoulder. I'd somehow bring him in. I said, okay, where should they take him? I said, take him to the Rosebank. And then I thought, look, maybe it's worse. I should just go, get in the car and go. And then I remember they brought him in a stretcher with oxygen. And I remember sitting with a pair of scissors, cutting his clothes off. And for the time that we spent in the ICU, we were not sure if we were going to make it. And he ended up back on his bike, which is where he loved to be. At least after that, I was able to keep up with him when we went for a ride. He, during the tenure period, also endured prostate cancer, multiple malignant melanomas, and pancreatic cancer with various complications. But the one thing you could rely on is seeing him with a pair of dumbbells, lying in a hospital bed, working out, talking to all the staff, joking with them, calling them by their first names, and doing impersonations of his favorite personalities. And he was always the life and soul of the party. And the last thing I want to comment on is something which I have had time in the past 10 years to think about. The past 12 years to think about. And that is, how did a person who grew up without a father turn out to be such a great father? And I'm not sure that I have an answer to that, but it's something that I mentioned on his 70th birthday. And at the time, thought maybe it was, I shouldn't have been giving a Hespid on his 70th birthday. But I guess we were at that stage feeling very, very happy to have him with us and healthy. And I mentioned the halacha, that we will go home, the mourners, and we will eat the sudas havra. There's a prohibition on the first day of mourning for a mourner to eat food, which is his own food. The food needs to be supplied by a third party. And I wonder, what is it about that? Why is there such a halacha? And I think the answer to that is because death represents the shattering, the destruction of the divine image that man is created in. That's what death is. But at all times when we're alive, and it's business as usual, we are supposed to emulate Hashem. And just as Hashem provides for us, His children, we too are supposed to provide for our children. And it's only in that specific case of Avelus, on the first day of mourning, that we have to live with the idea, the very notion that we as humans are limited, that we will die, and we have to accept handouts from other people. On every other day, we are supposed to be the providers. That is what we as parents do for our children. We provide for them, but it's a very difficult line to walk, because at the same time, how do you do that and make sure that your children are not dependent on you in an ongoing sense? You have to provide for them, and at the same time teach them that they have to be independent to provide for their children. And that is a very tight line to walk. It's a difficult act to get right. I think any parent knows that, and I think that is something that my father was a master of, and it's something that I will always appreciate. Hey, nafsho tzura nachayim.
With specific respect to the family, we will not be calling out pallbearers by name. For all immediate members of the family first to come forward to fill the mitzvah of pallbearing.